Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Ed Koza, and I just want to welcome you to our webinar today. I'm a Senior Director of Client Insights and Analytics at OSG, and I'm joined today by my colleague Viv. Viv is an Associate Client Insights and Analytics lead, so we're going to be walking through this today. Unfortunately, Sukumar, who was scheduled to deliver this, is actually sick and homesick today. So I'm going to do my very best to fill in for Sukumar. I was originally going to be co-presenting with him. So Viv and I will share the mic here and walk us through. And I do hope Sukumar gets better soon. So thanks again for joining. So let me jump right into this. Okay. And let me close that. All right, so just very briefly, OSG, who are we? Optimal Strategic Group. We've been around for about 10 years at this point. August of 2007 will be our 10-year anniversary. Very excited about that. We have a team that's spread across both the U.S. As well as in the U.K. and India. Very strong academic group. So Sukumar, the founder, previous academician, had taught and run various business schools, etc. You can see that 70% have a PhD or master's degree on our staff. And we work in several verticals, including CPG, including retail, and in addition, healthcare, finance, and energy. So I'm talking to you today from Newtown, Pennsylvania, which is one of our offices in the U.S. It's just outside of Philadelphia and also very close to Princeton. So again, we're looking forward to this. So let's jump right into it and talk about the consumer jobs framework. So first of all, what is a job? So let's just kind of get grounded in that, make sure we're all talking about this in the same way. But a consumer job is something that a group of consumers needs to get done. And that's going to take into consideration the circumstances, so the occasion. Where are they? Who are they with? What are they doing? It's going to take into account the struggle. What's the tension? What are they trying to solve? What situation? What is going on there? What are trade-offs are they willing to make? The desired progress. What are they trying to get done from a functional perspective, an emotional perspective? What are those social cues that they're looking for? It's also going to take into consideration what are the current options they have. Those current options could be a specific product, something from a brand. It could be a workaround, so something that the consumer has figured out a way to help them get the job done that they need, even though it may not be an existing product, which is always exciting to find. And then we also have to understand what are those benefits that they're looking for to hire a product or a brand. What do they need? What are they, and therefore, what does your brand need to deliver? And and how does your brand fit into that? So there's a lot going on when you think about the consumer jobs, but it's always from the consumer's perspective and really takes in that usage, circumstances, and so on. A couple of examples here on the screen, including taking just lifting. Swiffer, many of you have probably seen the ad that's been running on TV of the older couple, and the Swiffer product shows up at the door. And next thing you know, they're cleaning. So in this one, the older couple is able to reach hard-to-reach spaces with Swiffer. And so that's the job there, is this idea of eliminating dust in hard-to-reach places. Now, P&G chose to showcase and really to bring that job and solution with an older couple, almost as a torture test, if you think about it, a group that might even have a harder test. These jobs can apply across different types of consumers, different consumer segments, demographics, and so on. And a job is not necessarily tied to one consumer group. Another example here is this idea of frozen food. How do you get the job here is really getting your family, your kids to eat, to get the nutrition they need. I'm a dad myself, and getting my younger kids to actually eat, and the struggles that I can come across at dinner time. I see this one, and I think I saw this face last night. But here's a solution from Bird's Eye, where they combine, take superfoods, the blends, and combine it together. I believe this was just launched recently. And then finally, as a third example, another job to be done If you think about Blue Apron, right? Blue Apron came on. There's been a lot of buzz about Blue Apron. They really took the industry by storm. They identified this job to be done of how do you create restaurant quality meals at home, especially for those who don't have all the ingredients, or if you don't have the skill set that a restaurant chef will be. So by putting the right sizes, putting this together in a box, you actually create an event. You create something in the home so that either a couple, a family, or a group of friends can do together. So hopefully that starts to bring together the idea of what we mean by consumer jobs. So let me now hand it over to Viv, who can take us through a case that she did for a frozen food manufacturer and kind of talk about how jobs were defined and the way that we approached it. So Viv.
So hi everybody. I just want to take a few minutes now to go through a case study that we did with a leading frozen produce brand in the market and how we helped them to innovate some new product platforms. So essentially they came to us because they were interested in understanding how consumers make buying decisions when it comes to produce, whether that be fresh, frozen, or canned. And so they were interested in understanding what this landscape looks like from a consumer perspective and what kind of choices they were making, with the end goal of understanding where there might be white spaces on the landscape and therefore innovation opportunities for their brand. So what we did for them was a two-phase research study, and from our research there were a number of very interesting insights that helped them to develop their innovation strategy, and I'll just list or mention 4 here. So one was that consumers, when they think about buying produce, agnostic of temperature state, they really think about it in 4 key dimensions. And we tested about 57 benefits with our ACEMAP methodology, and from that we were able to cluster them and understand that there were 11 key jobs that consumers were looking to do when it came to buying produce. These jobs range from things like non-GMO and organic to comes in special variety packs or family sizes or convenient packaging and so on and so forth. The second main insight was that there's definitely a trend moving towards a health and wellness mindset. So consumers are much more interested these days in things like non-GMO and organic, in these sort of healthier spaces and healthier jobs. And there is a very distinct segment of consumers that's leading this charge. So we sort of saw them as the forward-looking segment, and we can expect more consumers to join this group going forward into the future. The third main insight was that there was more opportunity for frozen products to play in traditionally fresh jobs than we had previously expected. So things like non-GMO and organic that had previously been delegated to the fresh aisle, consumers were actually very willing to purchase frozen products in these areas in the future, even though they didn't necessarily see them as delivering on those promises today. And finally, another major insight that we had from this research was that there was a perception amongst consumers that if a frozen product was steamable, came in a steamable format, then it had some kind of healthier cachet. And so they were much more willing to believe that steamable products could play in these jobs or could deliver these jobs well. And so that was a very important insight that would go on to inform our clients' innovation launch. So the result of this was that we helped them to understand, first of all, and most basically, we helped them to understand how jobs are being prioritized from a consumer perspective. And as Ed will mention, our ACEMAP methodology is really perfect for this kind of understanding. It really allows you to get down to the granular benefit level and look at it from a variety of different ways. So we really provided that understanding and that prioritization first. And then we built upon that to understand how our clients' brands and its competitors' brands were performing on each of these jobs. So we evaluated the current product portfolio, we identified strengths and weaknesses, and from all of that, as well as the competitor analysis, we were able to identify where there were innovation opportunities, where there was a lot of appetite, but not a lot of products currently delivering on the market. Once we had identified these opportunity areas, we then went on to size them. And we did this with a mixture of their point of sales data as well as household panel data to size these innovation areas, accounting for the expected future growth in the category as well as expected cannibalization from within the current product portfolio as new innovations were launched. We also helped them to understand how much consumers are willing to pay for each of these innovations, what kind of premiums they'd be willing to add on, and then also did some barrier analysis to understand what barriers there might be to adoption and recommended strategies for overcoming these barriers. So from all of this research, our client was able to really have a firm understanding of where there were innovation opportunities in the marketplace and how they could go after those. And it resulted in them launching 2 to 3 new frozen product platforms just very recently that play into this health and wellness trend and that utilize Steamable as the product format with which to go into these innovation spaces. So this is just one example of the kind of work that we've done in the CPG field. This was a one-time or two-time research study that we did for this particular client, but with some of our new technology that we have now, we're starting to do this innovation work on a more continuous and ongoing basis as well. And I'm sure Ed will speak to that some more. So Ed, I'll turn it back to you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Viv. Very well. So let's just talk briefly about when we engage with our clients, how we kind of go about this. And what we find it's important, of course, is that we build upon what our clients already know. So there's a lot of organizational knowledge. There's a lot that's already known. We take that. That becomes our starting point so that we can build and grow from there. So then as we start to figure out what the key objectives are, how we can best work with our clients, we have the opportunity to recruit our consumers. We can recruit them while they're shopping, during an actual shopping occasion, if that makes sense. We can recruit them during an actual usage occasion or right before, right after a consumption moment so that we get closer to that moment, right? So I spent a lot of my career on the brand side of things, running various insights teams, and at one point I was leading a team focused on Band-Aid brand, and the work that we did when we actually intercepted moms shortly after a wound had occurred for their little one. Of course, we made sure everybody was good and healthy, and we weren't interrupting an emergency situation. But once we were able to talk to them right after the wound occurred, how did you treat it? What was important? Understanding what those drivers of the occasion were. What was the occasion? Where were you? Who else was there? The insights that we got from that when I was leading the Band-Aid Insights team versus the insights that we used to get by asking someone to think about that wound, a wound that your child may have had 3 weeks ago, typical screening requirements, get you a whole different dimension and level of insight. So that's something very much that our methodology and our technology allows us to do. So as Viv mentioned, we have two special approaches that really make us unique. AceMap, which I'm going to describe a little bit more, it's a trade-off exercise that really forces distinction and trade-offs, and is a much better approach than a traditional conjoint for many reasons. And also our CAVI technology platform, which lets us ingest all kinds of data, both primary research, syndicated data, as well as unstructured data that we collect from social media, etc., into this engine so that we can really get back, turn this into insights, and that's something that's very unique. And then, of course, we have a full battery of analytics, given our academic background, given the strength that we have in this organization to run segmentations, correspondence analysis, really discover and find those innovation corridors and jobs to be done. And then because we're using CAVI, or when we do use CAVI, this ability to actually continuously monitor and kind of develop ongoing insights, real-time insights, as we're monitoring social media, as we're monitoring conversations that can then be fed into primary research and we can quickly evaluate. So that's an overall engagement type of process at a very high level. As I mentioned, AceMap, it's something that's proprietary to OSG. Before I joined OSG, I had colleagues who had used it and really got turned on to the approach and the methodology. Traditional conjoint, great, obviously widely accepted, broadly used, has many applications. What AceMap does is it increases your accuracy. It's more efficient. You can go to smaller respondent groups. You can actually test more benefits, attributes, features, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. And it's the way the methodology works. So there's a couple ranking exercises that are done, and then also brings off trade-offs between pairs with an algorithm that runs in the background. so that you really get a strong trade-off and you really understand instead of some of the other trade-offs, or even by asking direct scales and so on, ACE-MAP really allows you to get to those choices that drive choice, and those choices within unique circumstances or within consumer segments, which I think is really important. So an example of something you might see coming out of an ACE-MAP exercise, and this is all data that's been made up and jobs and benefits that have also been made up for the purpose of our conversation today. But if you consider, a job might be that a consumer wants to do in the CPG arena, and something around celebrating, acknowledging. So think about those moments with your family where there's milestones happening, and the job is really to celebrate that. So some of the benefits that might come out of that really need this idea of tasting homemade, feeling cared for. And we can look at the relative importance of a whole battery of benefits. So this would just be a subset. As I mentioned, you can go up to 40 different benefits. You can look at that for different occasions. How big is this celebrate and acknowledge? How big is that occasion, or is that job to be done for these different types of occasions? So you really start to see the dimensions for which you can look at importance and start to figure out what is important, how does importance change as you look across different usage occasions and within different jobs. Now, obviously, as we talked about earlier, the same benefit can fulfill different jobs, right? And so because we're using things like hierarchical clustering, correspondence analysis, segmentation, all sorts of things, we're able to really identify what those jobs are, what the benefits that comprise that job, and then how they vary by different usage occasions and so on. So as we work with our clients, some clients have jobs already defined, and we'll take and build upon those jobs, and we'll feed those jobs into our ACE-MAP methodology and use CABI. Some of our clients may not have those jobs defined. We'll work with you to help you define what those jobs could be. So we can kind of pop in, and depending on what your status is, that lets us adjust, and we'll make sure we meet the needs accordingly. Another example that comes out, and we've had many clients who this turns into almost their money slide, if you will, right? Slides that they really get a lot of use, a lot of mileage out of. Having just worked with a cable network provider, and we ran a segmentation for them, and we were looking at programming across the day. We were able to really dimensionalize the different needs and how well those needs were met across the day by their entertainment options, by their programming options, for different segments, for different usage occasions. So this is an example of a typical output that you may see coming out of the ACE-MAP exercise. So the horizontal, or going from north and south, actually maps the relative importance of these different benefits. And then as you go from east to west, that's mapping how well these needs and benefits are met in the marketplace today. So again, you can look at this within a specific consumer segment, within a specific occasion or job to be done. Because ACE-MAP allows us to work with much smaller sample sizes, it gives us the flexibility. But if you look in that upper right-hand quadrant, for instance, those are always the areas that are right for where innovation should be coming from. So there are needs that are important, but that are unmet by current options today. And if you look at the left-hand side, those would be areas that are very important, but currently met. So again, you would look to that upper right-hand quadrant to start to think about innovation and figure out how to deliver innovation. So as I mentioned, because ACE-MAP is, and because CABI, as you'll see, is available, it can be placed onto a mobile device such as a smartphone or a tablet. It can also be completed using traditional means, what we consider traditional means today, such as desktop or laptop PCs. We're again able to intercept our consumers at the key inflection points. That point might be why they're shopping, so we can actually intercept them while they're at the store, ask them to think about the circumstance. What's the shopping occasion? What are they looking at the shelf? What options do they consider? They can then also complete a mini ACE-MAP exercise, trade-off exercise, while they're at the store shelf. The same can be done when you think about consumption, so before, after consumption, while they're preparing a meal. So there's a lot of flexibility. We also have the capabilities to bring in iBeacon, which is certainly starting to become more into the mainstream today, to really get that real-time access when they're at retail. So let's move on and talk briefly about Cavi. So Cavi, again, is our technology platform, and it really brings in it uses IBM Watson for machine learning. So it lets us get at predictive behavioral analytics. It lets us, it provides real-time monitoring, so we can bring unstructured data into the Cavi platform. We can look at social media content. There's so much we can do. We can also, this idea of community building, right? So that we can get to the right level of engagement and retentional analytics. There's a couple layers to Cavi. First is the data infrastructure, which really it lets us ingest data from various sources. So we can bring in primary research data that's tied to a specific consumer or panelist. We can also bring in syndicated data. So there's lots of the unstructured, the social media. Then the intelligence layer lets us predict the future based on modeling, based on, and this is the classic use of big data, and really being able to get this predictive analytics, modeling, and so on, the machine learning, that's where it comes in. Insights, we can, as a layer, really lets us do click and point. So if we want to look at what's important for produce for a millennial versus Gen X, we have a click and point capability within the platform that we delivered this on. So as you want to kind of figure out and ask some questions, it's very easy to use, so you can get under the hood and really start to also ask some big questions and so on. For instance, as antioxidants start to become more and more come into the mentality of the consumer, you start to discover that with unstructured data, you start to see that popping up in the conversations. As Watson understands that that's coming into getting more and more mentions, and it's starting to peak and so on, you can bring that into your primary research and understand how important that is, what would consumers trade that off of, and is there a specific group of segments or consumers that are particularly interested in it. So there's a lot of analytical power that goes behind this. And finally, this idea of intervention. So we work with a key automotive retailer, and this automotive retailer, as a customer comes in, they're able to kind of mark them as a bronze, silver, gold, platinum type of customer, and what do they need to do as they're in the store to actually make sure that customer is satisfied, to retain them and get them to kind of repeat and come back into the store. And that's based on understanding who that consumer is, that customer is, what's important to them, what their past experience, and because their data string is tagged and so on. So this has been very useful for the store managers at this automotive chain to be able to really drive up the retention statistics that they're tracking. So that's just another example. So again, we've talked about this idea of being able to take the ACE map, use that primary research on your phone. So in addition to ACE map, we're going to collect traditional survey type of information in terms of usage occasion, define the usage occasion, what they're using, get at brand performance, the demographics, kind of where they are, what they're doing, so that we understand the circumstances. We can combine that with a single stream source of data for that consumer, for that respondent. That includes Facebook, Pinterest, pictures that they take, right? Data searches on Chrome, even geographic location, et cetera, and that's all fed into IBM Watson. And so with Cavi, and this is the way we're able to uncover continuous innovation as we figure out jobs. So we're ingesting data not only from primary research, but again, from point of sale. We have an agreement that we are working on right now that's closed with IRI. We can bring in SPINS data. We have access to Epsilon and Axiom data. So all of these non-primary research data that we can actually bring in, ingest in here, get it into the system, and then feed it through the analytical module that's powered by IBM Watson. So So IBM Watson, we're tapping into the various cognitive analysis, the predictive models, demand tech, etc. And then finally, as we've done this with some of the customers, we create dashboards. We can create these performance dashboards on the right-hand side so that executives or users can quickly click in, understand what's popping up in sentiment analysis, what's more or less important, what are those dashboards around performance, et cetera, so that visualization module, which we customize for each of our clients, really lets us kind of get that, understand what's going on, create the visibility, the dashboarding that's needing, but also, again, constantly creating ongoing innovation by really having that ongoing touch point with the consumer, with the panelists. So there's a lot that we can do, continuous analysis and reporting, real-time visualization, and because this is software as a service, it has a minimum impact on your IT, and so it's much easier to adapt and bring into your organization. So as I look at the clock and realize that we're getting to the end of our half an hour, there's some benefits beyond innovation that we can really help with and that we're happy to talk to you with further. So from an innovation perspective, we can present the consumers, the respondents, with a concept and get them to evaluate that real time when they're in actual location. We can tap into co-creation, right? What ideas do your consumers have to offer you? What do they want? How would they build a better whatever, be that cooking spray, snack, peanut butter, whatever that may be, really tapping in and living that idea of co-creation that was brought forth a couple of years ago, and then identifying new jobs and usage occasions. As we start to see themes pop up in social media, as we start to see this, we can start to understand what those new jobs may be and build that and test it. And then beyond innovation, right, you can use this, and this is starting to be a stretch, but think about the possibilities here. Testing advertising, testing package design. This is very fast, immediate, so you really can start to stretch this, and it becomes a platform for a lot of your potential primary research needs and approaches. Okay, so let me, I recognize that we have just 2 minutes here. I'm going to flash up some contact information, our website. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to have the chance to have a much deeper conversation, understand what you're wrestling with, understand what's keeping you up at night so that we can actually have a much more personal conversation and really speak to you in very specifics about how we believe we could help you or even just kind of give you some food for thought. Geeta, do we have any questions from the audience?
Thank you so much, Ed and Viv. We have a couple of questions. The first one is it possible to see a demo of Cabby?
So that's absolutely. So we have, we know that slides only take us so far. We've created demos. We could show you some of the stuff that we've done. So absolutely, yes. Let us know. We'd love to set that time up. We can set up a short call and happy to walk you through a demo. Just, respond with your contact information or how we could get in touch with you. Happy to do that.
Thank you, Ed. The last question is, how would you leverage IBM Watson? You gave us an example of an automotive client, but keeping CPG in mind, how would you leverage IBM Watson? Yeah,
I think IBM Watson, which really just is full of different analytical modules, lets us, as there's a text reading capability. So you can actually understand the emotion behind a text, and beyond just measuring the sentiment. In the old days, measuring sentiment was positive, negative, neutral. IBM Watson actually lets you take a look at the text, the context of that text, and evaluate the emotion as a consumer talks about a brand, an occasion. So as they're putting something out there, are they frustrated? Are they optimistic? What's going on there? We can also use Watson has an extensive database that we can really tap into for trends, norms, behaviors, demographics, and feed that into the predictive analytics, the modeling that's happening underneath. And then I kind of talked about this already, but this idea of unstructured data, uncovering social themes, finding new jobs, a new angle, and really understanding that unstructured data is also going to, an immediate application of also your communications, your brand communications, really starting to make the context for how you evaluate your brand communications and demonstrate specific benefits. It's going to be much more real and much more based in consumer insight. So a long answer. I apologize for that. You can see the excitement here, but hopefully that starts to give you a flavor of what else we can do with Watson.
Thank you so much, Ed. If the audience has any more questions, please, you can always contact us with the emails that you see on the screen. We'll also have a copy of the recording available to you from our company website that you can see on the right side of your screen. And we thank you for attending this webinar today, and we wish you a very good rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the first day of summer.